Okay, I think we will call this very small meeting to order. This is the Ward 6 NPA. I am Dale Azaria. I am a member of our Ward 6 steering committee. A few of our other steering committee members are not able to make it tonight. They have other obligations, including one of our steering committee members, Mills Forney, is actually attending another Burlington meeting tonight. He is our Ward 6 representative to the Community Development Block Grant Funding Allocation meeting. So he has reviewed applications and is working on helping the city choose how to spend funds that we get from the federal government to support community development. But we do have at least one other steering committee member online. Anita, you want to say hi?
Yes, hello everyone. Oops, got an
Thanks.
echo.
And Anita, you can hear us okay? We've got a
Yeah,
new microphone here that maybe is making things better.
no, I can hear you fine, but I am hearing my own echo.
Oh, that's always a pain.
It's
Nothing I
okay.
can do about that though.
No, I live with it.
Are there any announcements? I will offer an announcement on behalf of Alan Matson, our ward clerk, who's also my husband. He wanted to thank everyone who came to help work at the polls. Hey there. He also wanted to uh, apologize for some convenience as people are getting accustomed to the new voting location that we have at Edmonds. He is open to any feedback and comments on that, which he is going to pass on to City Hall. But other than the fact that some people had trouble finding the right door to come in, apparently everything went smoothly and they were able to close things out in good order. So Bram, just to catch you up, we are just in announcements. Do you have any announcements that you want to make?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. In that case, we are ahead of schedule, but we will move right to city council reports. Buddy, I see you're online. I don't know if Becca's going to be able to join us tonight, but we would love to hear from you.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
Great. Yeah, Becca should be joining us. She might be a little late. I know she was coming from another meeting, so she'll probably jump on partway through. And she was going to give you a little update on the ballot items that all passed, post town meeting day. And I want to thank everybody also, Dale, that was at the polls. I ventured over there probably late afternoon, and there was a lot of people volunteering, so I wanted to thank them. I know it's a long day being on your feet, so really appreciate all the work that goes into making town meeting day happen here in Ward 6 and the rest of the city. I was just going to give a couple quick council updates, and then if Becca jumps out, I'll have her talk a little bit more about the ballot items. But recently, at the last couple of meetings, the council did pass bipartisan build resolution, which is basically tasking an ad hoc committee that's going to look into seeing how we can use neighborhood code better. Kind of unlock it is kind of the term a lot of people are using. Seeing how we can create as much infill as possible to help with the housing situation here in Burlington. Additionally, we also asked in that resolution that we look at permitting, inspections, and the whole process of whether you're renovating, building, or whatever it is you're doing as far as construction is concerned, how we can streamline that process to make it easier. Often you hear out there's a lot of contractors, subcontractors that won't work in Burlington because they find the permitting process cumbersome, costly, and sometimes very lengthy. So we're really interested to see as that committee is formed, working along with our partners in permitting inspections, zoning, and with CETO to see what we can come up with to help make it easier for that infill to happen and for even smaller landlords or even first-time landlords and developers how to create more units and provide more density within the city. I think that's going to be a really good thing moving forward. Looking forward to those results. Also, additionally, we passed a resolution regarding tax fairness. There was some discussion in the council about a potential ballot item. We felt it would be better to. The mayor did host a tax fairness working group that didn't have a lot of public input. So this gives us a chance to have a lot of public input on how to make our property tax system, better for those people who are on the lower end of the scale as far as income is concerned and even property values, and trying to look at ways that we can also take in ability to repay and to actually tackle tax fairness, not necessarily with the one size fits all solution, but with a solution that takes into account not only people's ability to repay, but also the value of their home, and see if it can be more targeted. The repercussions of just a blanket exemption on the homestead is that it would increase cost on any rental or any non-homestead property in Burlington, and non-homestead would include second homes, rental properties, and commercial real estate. And given the challenges we're facing in the downtown with attracting businesses and keeping rents affordable for all of Burlington, we found that this garnered more research and a closer look on how we can make it more targeted and make sure the people that need tax relief are getting it without harming either renters or our business community, so we can keep the downtown vibrant and for everybody that participates in everything we do here in Burlington. So that was the build resolution and the tax fairness working group or the tax fairness ad hoc committee that's going to be coming up. So those are the recent things that have gone on council. Beck is here. I'll let her say hi and talk about the ballot items that passed on this town meeting day.
Okay, great. Sure. Thanks, buddy. Sorry, I was running a little late and you all got started a little early, it seems like. So yes, I'm Councilor Rebecca Brown McKnight, and I just wanted to give a quick recap on the what just happened this week. Of course, it was town meeting day in all of the state of Vermont this week. I was reelected to my second term, which is great. So I'll be seeing you all for 2 more years representing Ward 6. Buddy is in the middle of his first term. And then, but citywide, there were two city-specific ballot items. There were 4 total ballot items. 2 of them were having to do with the school, which I'll mention, the school system, which I'll mention briefly, but both city items passed. The first was a 5% increase or 5-cent increase in the public safety tax. I had some reservations about that tax. It did pass, and it's important for people to know that that will, hang on one second, I have a visitor.
Mute.
Everybody wants to get involved in city work, which is a good thing.
Very welcome at our meeting,
Yes,
Becca.
I know. No, she's just right over there in the corner listening. Hi, honey. So the public safety tax passed. It's important for folks to know that just because it passed doesn't mean it's being used and doesn't mean that the associated increases happen automatically. I do anticipate some of it will be used, but that will be something we work out in the budget process. And, Councilor Singh and I are really committed to making sure that the tax increases for residents are as low as they possibly can be, and that our budget makes sense for funding essential services, which police and fire certainly are such essential services. But there's going to be a lot more robust discussion on that. And what I always like to say on the budget, for the benefit of folks at the NPA or just who might watch the recording or in the broader community at large, I really value hearing from residents about what matters to them in the city budget. Sometimes people say, oh, this thing is really important to me, but this thing maybe not so much, whether that's has to do with the roads or it has to do with city events or something to do with our parks, or your perspective on the public safety area. So I love hearing from people about that, because there are a lot of hard decisions to make. And when we hear where people are at in terms of how they're interfacing with the city and they're using services, it helps shape that perspective. So that was kind of a ballot item recap. Oh, and then the other ballot item that also passed is the REIB charter change, which I was very supportive of. The REIB does work that I really consider to be essential city infrastructure. They provide a lot of advisement on a lot of tough issues that are coming up more and more every day, especially given the federal climate, and really provide a valuable resource for promoting equity throughout the city. It's also important to note that charter change is not finalized until it goes to Montpelier and is approved, and then it will be taken into our city charter. And the REIB department is less than 1% of the budget for the whole city, so it's not a measure that has any significant impact financially to taxpayers. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is a little bit of a meeting preview coming up this Monday. The council will take up the recycling program. There are a few paths before us, but I do think this meeting will be that final moment where we decide whether or not the city keeps having city staff do recycling. We're having some fun with the camera angles here. Oh no, you have a hole in your sweater. I have to fix that. So that's the main kind of hot topic on the council agenda this coming Monday. And I'm happy to take any questions, but I think I covered it all, buddy. Tell me if I forgot anything.
No, I think that's good.
Thank you both. Are there any questions for Buddy or Becca?
Becca, can your child say hello to us?
Yeah, of course. This is Claire McKnight. Want to say hello?
Hi.
Hi, Claire.
Claire, nice to meet you.
Thanks for joining the
Evan,
meeting.
and she's in second grade.
Awesome.
Any other questions or from anybody online? I actually did have a question, Buddy, about those two committees that you were talking about, the one on improving infill housing and the one on tax fairness. If folks have opinions about that, what's the most useful thing for them to do?
Yeah, so we haven't scheduled those meetings yet. So those committees will be formed shortly. And there's going to be the build resolution it's going to combine through planning, the planning commission, through ordinance. It's going to go through a lot of places where there's going to be a lot of public input. We'll make sure to get that out to people as those meetings are brought together. It's going to be really important. We will need input from both people. If you've ever renovated anything in your house, thought about doing an addition, if you've gone through that process and you have ideas, I'd encourage you to come out and give those suggestions or talk about your experiences and what you think could help. We're going to encourage contractors, developers, and even small or new landlords or people that own their own duplex that live there to to input as much as possible because we're really trying to streamline this process and make it a lot easier. I think we're going to find out a lot of things kind of doing that work. But as those meetings come up, those resolutions were just passed. So it'll take a little bit before we start forming the committees and having timelines on that. Same with tax fairness. I think part of the ad hoc committee will probably be formed, I would think, the same time we realign the committees based on what happened on town meeting day. All the committees will probably be formed then. We'll be sure to report back here to the NPA on both of those items on how people can provide input on both those items.
Yeah, if I might just comment on Becca's report on the charter change and the comment in particular that it needs to go to Montpelier for approval. I will say that the current structure in Montpelier enjoys the fact that it has the right to say yes or no to city charters. And but I did make a somewhat quixotic effort. I did submit a bill to make it a little bit easier for charter changes to move more easily through the legislature.
Thank you. Please, anything
as-
you can do. I mean, it's getting a little
Yeah.
ridiculous, if I can be frank, about how long things are sitting that, this charter change had 57% of the vote, which is strong, but we have some that have 85% of the Burlington vote that have been sitting there for ages. So thank you, Bram. Really appreciate that.
Yes, it's as I say, unlikely. Someone, maybe Dr. King said, no one ever gives up power voluntarily.
But you're trying.
But I am trying to. To me, it's just a question of democracy. A single person in Montpelier should not have veto power over the will of the voters in any city around town, which is what is the current situation. Actually, two people have veto power. The chair of the government ops committee can choose not to take it up, and the governor can veto it. So there are two people with veto power, and that just feels undemocratic to me. So
Thank you. Related to that, and this is a question for Buddy or Becca or Bram. I know there was talk about the no guns in bars charter change. I think that was supposed to be a charter change, and I think that it hasn't come to a vote in the House, or the House hasn't approved it. Is that still alive in any
Yes.
in any meaningful sense and in any real sense? Is that still alive?
yeah, so where that stands is it is in the Government Operations Committee, and it is the chair of that committee does not want to take it up, and therefore it will die there at the end of this session, because this is the second year of the biennium when anything that is not passed dies and has to start over next. And Burlington has passed that charter change a few times by like 80+ % of the vote. I think someone.
Yeah. And
Can
Bram,
affirm or-
what's the best way for folks to advocate to potentially have a new chair of that committee?
That question.
Yeah, that is an excellent question. And the chair of that committee does not like me at all, because I'm trying to remove him from this process. But the Speaker of the House has sole authority to appoint committee chairs. So the best thing to do is to let Jill Krowinski know that you feel her chair of her government ops committee is impeding what is best for Vermont.
Any other questions or comments for Buddy or Becca? One other thing that I wanted to mention, I don't know if either or both of you is able to stay for the full meeting, but towards the end of the meeting, we wanted to kind of do some thinking out loud about how to best use this meeting time going forward. we have a couple of prompts that we were going to toss out to everybody in the meeting, and I want to offer them to you in case you're not here at the end of the meeting, in the hopes that you will respond. We wanted to ask, what's the best thing that the city has done recently? What should the city do more of? And what's a concern that should be addressed? In the context of an NPA, right? In other words, we're not particularly setting priorities for the city council or anything like that, but I just tossed that out to the two of you. In case you're not on, we'd love to hear your thoughts about that. And you can share it now, or you can send them by email, or you can wait till that comes up in the agenda, whatever works for you.
I'll just jump in briefly because I will have to go probably before the meeting ends. I would look, if you, Dale, if you could send those to us in an email. I mean, I'd be happy to give my answer, but to be honest, I'm more interested in what residents think about the answers to those questions and what maybe NPA steering committee members think. So if you all could facilitate sharing whatever answers you do get beyond just what's in the meeting recording, I would be interested to see that. So thank you, though. Those are nice.
Of course, we will do that.
Yeah, I agree with Becca on that. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to jump off before the end of this meeting. I'm gonna try to stay for a little bit here. But yeah, I'd be very interested to hear what people have to say. And it would probably change. I'm sure it will change what my answers are because the more opinions we can bring in, the better decision making I think we can make as counselors and as a city. So.
Okay. Thank you both. I don't know if Teresa Vizina is here from the office of. She's walking in right now. Excellent. You're on.
I'm on, okay.
We can stall for a couple of minutes if you need to take your jacket off and things like that.
That's all right. Good evening, everybody. I always have a hard time. I pass by the place, so. Okay, could I ask you to throw up the PowerPoint?
You could ask Barbara to
Oh,
do
Barbara, thanks. How's everybody doing this evening? Good.
We ate well.
Good.
You know, we're doing good.
Great, thanks.
We are a small but cheerful crew because we're well fed.
Food will do that, yes. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Teresa Vizina. I am the special assistant for the Overdose Prevention Center implementation at the City of Burlington in the mayor's office. And this would be our second time visiting you. And Jess Kirby was here the first time. I was unwell, so she came, and then tonight she sends her apologies. She was going to be with me, but also is not well. So we said we owed each other one for doing that. So this is our second time here, and tonight we're here really specifically as a listening session. A lot of the NPA meetings that we've been to, we've been sharing information and talking about the project, and we're at the place now in the project where we're about 3/4 of the way through the service assessment, and we've talked a lot about the service assessment, and that is part of the community survey that I'm sure a lot of you probably participated in. So we wanted to be able to share a little bit of the preliminary data that came out of the community survey. We received over 1,500 responses to the community survey, which we were quite impressed actually with that number, and came from all different sectors of the city, different groups, as well as business owners and residents and broader community. So we had a good showing on that. And so we'll share a little bit of the preliminary data. And then tonight is for me to really hear you all. I won't do a lot of talking at you, and I also maybe won't answer a ton of questions. I'll answer easy ones, but hopefully we're going to learn from you about your concerns, your thoughts, your questions, which we're tracking. We will, up on the screen, show the 3 questions that we'll be kind of focusing in on. We have about 25 minutes, I get, or no, actually, well, I started a little early, so about a half hour. I don't know that we'll need all of that time. So what is the Overdose Prevention Center? Is everyone in the room familiar with the project, or do you guys want? Yeah, okay. And the status of the project in Burlington. We are, like I said, about 3/4 of the way through with the service assessment. We anticipate having the final report by the end of April. We'll receive the draft report this month in March, probably about the middle of March or so. And then I don't know if people have watched the news. And so I know that there's been some media coverage about a potential site that fell through. And I just wanted to address that. It wasn't part of my original talking points, but because it was just recently in the media, I just kind of wanted to explain a little bit more about site selection and sort of what happened with that. Since the beginning of this project, I think everyone's known that siting was going to probably be the biggest lift of this and pretty difficult actually. So through our site acquisition plan, VCJR has been working with a real estate broker who's been doing a market analysis for the city and for VCJR just to kind of say what's out there, what's going on. Over the last 6 to 9 months, he has actually spoken to at least a dozen different property owners, property management companies, just to kind of say like gauging interest, like would you be open to leasing a space for the OPC? And what we learned through that process is that we will not be able to lease a building for this. And so we started to look at, okay, what does it look like to have a property that we own in order to do this project? And we looked at several different properties, and we really have a responsibility to the community to do our due diligence. There are a lot of different compliance things that any building, whether it's leased or whether it's purchased, has to meet in order to be able to be an OPC. And so what we've been doing is basically checking things out and crossing them off the list because they're not viable actually. And so a recent building, we were actually thinking, gosh, this might have some potential. We were quite excited to think, okay, maybe we're going to be bringing, a location to the public, and maybe we're going to be talking to city council about it and doing these things. And then it actually turned out to be not viable. So it also got crossed off the list. It's a small town, and that that information made its way. We were, at the State House advocating for the project. And anyway, the way that it all goes is it did make it seem like we had chosen a site that fell through, but I just want to be real clear, no site was chosen. We have to do so many other things before a site can be chosen. And so I'm also taking the opportunity to reassure folks that the commitment that we made since the beginning about transparency and community input and all of that remains true. But we can't, we couldn't bring every single possible situation to community forum because it just doesn't, would be silly to do that. But anyway, so that is what happened. And as we continue through this same process, we're going to continue to look at possible opportunities. We're going to do our due diligence and see if they're viable. If and when we have a viable location, we will begin the community engagement process. There'll be public forums and public input period, as well as many conversations with city council, who ultimately has the final vote on the location, as well as we have to go through the zoning and ordinance committee as well and get a footnote. So there's quite a lot of steps that would still need to happen before any site could be actually selected. So just wanted to kind of share that. I've got quite a few emails just asking questions, and I think it's really hard to explain all the little pieces. So if anyone has questions about that, I am happy to answer.
Can you share which particular criterion that site didn't meet?
Well, it also has to be something that your immediate neighbors are in support of, right? You can't if your immediate neighbors are not
Yeah.
in support, then that's a no-go, right? Like, and we're really cognizant of that. And
That was that.
that was
Got
that, you know, so so yeah, who knows how we don't know how this will turn out. Anyway. So tonight, as I said, I'm going to do a lot of listening. So our next slide, I think, will be preliminary results. I'll be asking, just as you're kind of listening to the preliminary results, the 3 questions that I'll be asking are, what positive impacts do you hope that the OPC might bring to our community? The other question will be, do you have concerns related to the OPC being in our community? And the third will be, what would you like to see for ongoing communication as the OPC is being implemented? So we really hope to learn a little bit more about that as well. So our service assessment was done with PIRE. PIRE is an external research partner that we really wanted to make sure that we had a neutral entity who was doing the data collection and the interviews and surveys and such. And so we've been working with PIRE since July. PIRE developed the community surveys. They also conducted in-person interviews with people who use drugs who would possibly be using the Overdose Prevention Center. They did 49 of those in-person surveys with people who use drugs. They did those at VCJR and at Safe Recovery. And then, like I said, we had the anonymous online community survey, which received over 1,500 responses. And we also are continuing to do ongoing community engagement. So that isn't just that's all we're going to do. Ongoing community engagement continues. And even prior to this structured activity with PIRE, I probably had about 80 different one-on-one conversations with community members and stakeholders prior to July. We can go ahead into the next slide. So this is just a little bit of information about the individuals who took the survey. 84% of the respondents of people with lived experience, PWLE is what that acronym stands for. So people with lived or living experience said that they currently are reporting not having a place to live, and 80% are currently unsheltered. It's a very high percentage. 86% of those folks also use drugs at least once per day. And 43% use alone most of the time or always. And this is where we see overdose deaths happening. Not using alone is the very first step we say to stay alive is to use with other people around. And then 47% of those folks had overdosed at least once in the past year. So when we think about having a place where people don't have to use alone, I think we could make a big impact. Of the folks who responded to the community survey, 75% identified as Burlington residents, 45% work here in Burlington, and 2% were business owners.
2% seems like a small number, but 1,500 respondents, that's 30 business owners who responded. That's a meaningful percent of business owners in the downtown area.
We were quite happy also with the 45% of folks working in Burlington, as well. They don't own the business, but they have a lot to say about being employees in Burlington, downtown specifically, really. And then we had a few, we had some folks coming from other, neighboring communities. Many people have reached out, they're curious about Burlington as well. And then 8% of those people from the community survey also identify that they are a person who would fall under the people with living or lived experience of drug use. And so we wanted to make sure we captured that percentage. I think one of the things that we work hard about is stigma. And there are many folks who use drugs that are housed and, are, stable in their lives. And so anyway, I thought that was important to share. So we can have next slide. Where are people using? So this came from the survey with people who use drugs and where they currently live or are staying. In an outside location, you'll see is a fairly high percent, 69% in vehicles in City Hall Park, in a friend's residences. And I think that when you start to look at this, you can really see that percentage of people who are unhoused really shows up here, I think, too, with some of the places folks are using because they don't necessarily have their own primary residence. Next slide. Utilization of folks that would possibly use the OPC. 92% responded that they would consider using the OPC when it opens, and 73% said they would use it always or most of the time. I think that the community perception of the OPC, there was a question like, do you think the OPC would be helpful of scale 1 to 10? And the most often selected answer was 10, meaning that most helpful, the median being 7 and the average answer was 6.3. So preferred location. So this kind of circles back to the topic we were just talking about. And it's really important as we're thinking through locations. We also want to know, where do people who use drugs want to, access, or where would be best for them to access, but also where does our community feel might be some of the best locations. And from within the survey, downtown was the most selected response from both people with living experience and from the community surveys. But the Old North End and Riverside Intervale came in really close, at a close second and third choice on both surveys. The most commonly answer reason why people would choose those locations was accessibility for potential clients. And that was the most common response at 52%, being the most important factor, followed by proximity to schools and playgrounds, and other support services, other social services and health services. And then transportation was another important factor to consider when looking at locations.
So, sorry, but I found that a little bit confusing. Proximity to schools and playgrounds. Does that actually mean distance from schools and playgrounds, or closeness to schools and
Distance.
playgrounds?
Like,
Okay.
yes, like
Okay.
is important to people to know that it wasn't going to be close to a
Just
school
needed to make
playground.
sure.
Yes,
Thank you.
yeah. How far would people who would use the program, how far would they be able to travel? 60% 5 to 15 minutes. 23% said 15 to 25, which I was kind of surprised by. And then 13% at, over, half hour or a little bit more. 68% of people said that they would be very likely to use a free shuttle if it were available between downtown and the location of the OPC. And 75% said they would be very likely to use use the OPC if it was a mobile that traveled around Burlington. That was a really high percentage, and actually something that we did not expect to see a number that high. So, doing these surveys is really important because, wow, we need to dig into and don't leave any stones unturned, right, about how can we bring this vital service to people. So that was a good data point to collect. And then security and safety at the OPC. This is a big topic. Community safety, public safety, safety on site, safety outside the OPC. All of that is something that's very much something that we have to talk about, but also there'll be policies and procedures being developed with law enforcement and fire and EMS. And from within the survey, people with living experience who would use the site said that 53% of people would feel safer if there was a security guard inside of the OPC. 19% would feel less safe, and 28% neither more safe or any less safe. I think it's really important to see here, and I read there's another data point probably coming up, is how important safety and security was to people who use drugs. It was more important, almost than to the community members when we get to that piece. But even having security outside, that was a lower percentage than having someone inside, which I thought was an interesting data point as well. Next slide. Public health outcomes. This is all available to you on Civic Clerk too, so I won't probably go down each one of them, but in order of like, what did the community survey respondents, what did they rank as the most important to them as the public health outcomes from the project? And so preventing overdose deaths and saving lives, number one. Reducing public use in outdoor spaces. I think this is really important. We do know from the people who use drugs data that they are using a lot outside in public spaces. So the OPC ideally will bring people indoors into a safe, warm, sterile environment with caring and trained staff. So I think that people do see that as a outcome of the OPC. And then because there will be low barrier treatment available and recovery services at the OPC embedded, this will absolutely be another way to help connect people to treatment services, other health and social services, reducing the burden on EMS and police and fire. If they're not having to respond to so many overdoses happening in the city, we hope that will really help relieve them of the many calls they have to go out on, reducing crime in the surrounding areas, and then syringe litter, and at the very bottom, reduce HIV and hepatitis C. And I think, now in this time in number 7 can be that, because we've worked so hard in this state over the last 30 plus years with syringe service programs to reduce HIV and hepatitis C, that it's almost like a thing that we don't think about as much as we did in the 80s when people were dying. And so I think goes to show the efficacy of syringe service programs over the last 30 years. So next slide, please. Services and supports. The majority of people who use drugs reported that the top things that they wanted to see at the OPC was medical care, STI testing, so sexually transmitted infection testing, bathrooms and showers, peer supports, drug checking, on-site buprenorphine, which is a opioid use treatment medication, mental health and drug treatment referrals, and then support with basic needs was actually at the bottom. And we thought that might be higher, actually. So again, really interesting to see what folks who would use the program had to say. And then for the community survey respondents, what did they hope to see at the OPC? Referrals to drug treatment, mental health services and referrals, on-site buprenorphine, bathrooms, and peer support. So I find it interesting that medical care was the first for people who use drugs, and it wasn't even in the list from community members as being a primary service to be offered. And there will be ancillary medical services at the OPC. There is going to be a medical director, and we do think it's very important to have medical care, wound care, that type of thing at the OPC as well. So next slide, please. Ongoing community conversations. I'm just going to sort of glaze through this because this just kind of tells you like how other people in the community would like to continue conversations, but I'm going to ask you all how you feel about that later, so we can go next step. Oh, actually, we can skip that slide. Skip that slide too. Oh, they didn't put it up there. Oh, here we go. Discussion questions. So I had sort of shared these verbally at the very beginning to kind of get you thinking while I was going through the data points. So now it's your turn for me to pass on the mic, so to speak. I got to get a pen so I can take notes. I said that very apprehensively because I don't know that I have a pen. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And this is open floor, really, honestly. You don't have to go one by one through the questions. Really, I just want to hear kind of what y'all are thinking in general about the OPC and your thoughts. Really, your voices really do matter. So however you guys want to do this, if someone wants to start us off, that would be great.
I'm looking around the room. I have some thoughts myself, but I'm looking for other hands. Buddy, I see you've got your hand up. You want to go ahead?
Dale, you can go first if you'd like. Whatever
No,
you
that's
prefer.
okay.
I'd just really be curious, Teresa, if we'll be able to look at the raw data. I'm struck on page 7. You know, we see a mode of 10 on community perception, yet the median answer is 7, but the average is 6.3. It strikes me that there's a large distribution of answers here to have 10 be your mode and the average is 6.3. It makes me wonder how many zeros and ones were in this to bring that average down and to have a mode of 10 only keep an average of, you know, at 6.3. So I'd be really interested to see the raw data on this
Yeah, absolutely.
because that distribution strikes me as, you know, it strikes me that's interesting how it would be distributed that far from the average to the mode.
Thanks. Thank you, buddy. I should have prefaced that this slide deck is only preliminary data that I asked Pyre, could they put something together for these sessions? So this is not what the final report will look like, and was well, I asked for it very quickly, and so they put it together for me in about a week after getting the data. So I'll note this, buddy, that we'd like to make sure that for those numbers in the final report that we're putting more detail on that, if that works for you.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Teresa. Appreciate your hard work.
Not seeing any other hands immediately. I'll go ahead. A couple of things. One is, as you were talking about the services that would be offered in this place and reflecting on the fact that many of the people who will benefit from this facility are unhoused, and also recognizing that there are also unhoused people in our community who aren't using these substances and so don't need this facility. But if this becomes a place to get medical care, will it be limited to only the people who were there for purposes of using these drugs, or will other people who need those same services be able to get them? Like, how does this compare to a day station for somebody who's unhoused or something like that?
That would be really hard for me to give an accurate answer on right now. I think what we're doing right now is gathering information to determine what would services look like and what services are needed. I think that we have to think about, it can't become like an urgent care space, right? Because we wouldn't have the capacity to do that. I'm not really sure if when I went to Rhode Island and visited their center, they do have some folks who are coming in who are not, they're not always, I did this because their OPC, their supervised consumption room is upstairs. They have people that come in and they aren't using the supervised consumption room that day, but they have used it before. and they can come in and hang out in the space, the community space. They can see the nurse. They can go to a support group. They can, take a shower. So it's more about being connected to the center. You don't have to always go there to use drugs, if that makes sense. And that's the Rhode Island model. We have contracted with Rhode Island to be our technical assistance provider on this project. And we really love their program and their space. And they're most similarly matched to Vermont as well. So we hope, yes, but with some boundaries.
Other questions, comments?
Sure, yes. Teresa, my name is Robin Fawcett, and I've heard you speak on this matter several times, and I've heard it discussed at City Council. And I just really appreciate your conscientiousness and how much I feel like you've educated me and the community through your work, and I'm just really a champion of it. So I hope we find the right spot, and thank you so much for coming here tonight.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Also, I appreciate how cheerful you are. Just very pleasant.
Thank you.
I would say for me, the positive impact is the primary reason. Just fewer Burlingtonians dying on the streets. And it's probably ageist of me to say, but particularly young people. Young kid in my neighborhood died of an OD. A kid who was in my kid's class in high school died of an OD, and it's just super painful for anyone. But there's an extra twinge when it's a young person. And in terms of concerns, again, as Robin said, through all your education, I don't have much at all in the way of concerns other than how hard it's going to be to get this thing built. Mm-hmm. Although the notion of a mobile OPC solves that problem to some extent, because it's not getting permanently sited in anyone's neighborhood. It just comes through.
There are worldwide, there aren't a lot of mobile programs like this. And so I think thinking through like hybrid possibly, or what, I think that some thought needs to go into it, because then a mobile, a little van can go around, but then how do you have all the other embedded services and service providers and build a community center for people, and, a place where they can go and spend significant amount of time. And, I think that it's a catch-22 where I think possibly having a both and situation would be ideal. But again, I'm jumping way ahead. I'm now just kind of saying my own personal feelings, but I do hear what you're saying.
It also seems like it would be harder for people to find it, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a crazy question, but has it been considered at all for it to be connected to or part of a city building?
No, actually, I think it's wouldn't be connected to a city building. I think they're for a variety of different reasons. Having the OPC provider, who is VCJR, sort of hold that space is probably keep it separate, basically. Yes. Yeah. Trust in this community, building trust is really important. And that's one thing VCJR has in spades. I mean, they have already incredibly trusting relationships with this population. And, at their space on Bank Street, they're serving those 49 people already at their current space, and you don't see any issues outside of their building. And it's because of the kinds of relationships that they have with folks, the respect and trust they have of them, actually. So I think still being within a space that is VCJR is really important. Yeah.
That independence.
Yeah.
Say I work on Bank Street, and It is absolutely true. There's no sign. You'd never know. It's super well managed from that point of view. If that is the goal, they have achieved it.
Thanks for sharing that. They'll appreciate that. I'm sure I tell you.
Yeah.
Say, so you were talking about a bunch of the survey results, and one of them that was really kind of I didn't suppose was the percentages of where people were using, and I thought, oh, that was a very interesting and eye-opening statistic for me. So thinking about what would you like to see ongoing communication, you probably are already thinking about this, but definitely, touting your successes and what does that mean to the community, and being able to tell the story, I think will be really important, and eye-opening for the rest of the community, because not everybody's kind of dialed into all this.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments from folks online? And we are, I think, the same 2 minutes early to finish up as you were to start. So look at
Perfect.
that.
And it wasn't even timed that way necessarily. I didn't even need a timekeeper. Thank you all so much. I appreciate being able to be here again. And just so that you know, some of our next steps is once the final service assessment is complete and we have that final report, we want to hold a larger public community event where we can share those findings and have it, because it will be much more in depth actually than sort of this little quick preliminary PowerPoint deck. So that will be coming up probably in April-ish. And yeah, I look forward to coming back again. And anytime if your group has questions and wants us to come back, always invite us and we'll sure to be here as well. So
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Thanks.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you for your pen too.
So next up, we have Jacob Flanagan. Jacob reached out to us offering to lead a session on how to reduce fossil fuels in your home. Just so folks know kind of our orientation. We asked Jacob, was he selling a product? Was he here to, make a profit off of selling heat pumps or whatever? We asked him if he worked for or represented a particular nonprofit. And we asked him, or is this a passion project for you? And in fact, it was the last one. This is something he is doing because he believes in it and he cares about it. And so we are excited to hear what he has to say.
Okay. Charlie, is it all right if I stand up there? Would that still work? I'm going to fidget a lot, so standing will help me fidget more. Okay. All right. I am Jacob. And as Dale mentioned, I'm kind of an energy nerd. This is my passion project so we have a climate crisis going on here, and there's a lot of complicated things, but one thing that isn't complicated is to address it, we need to stop burning fossil fuels. So I'm trying to do my part to help stop burning fossil fuels and help other people in my community do that. You're like, what's up with this image? That was AI. I asked her for an image for this presentation, and that's what it came up with, so it's cool. All right. Quick question. So who here personally burns fossil fuels? Okay. Who here would like not to personally burn fossil fuels if they could? Okay, great. This is the presentation for you. All right, let's do the next slide. Okay, so why is this important? So the equipment, the fossil fuel equipment that we have in our house are big ticket items, which means they're going to last a long time, or hopefully they last a long time, right? We pay a lot of money for them, 10, 20 years. And 10, 20 years, that means we're locked into buying and burning fossil fuels and investing in that infrastructure to transport it to our house. We don't have that long.
So we want to try to avoid that. We want to try to fix that. So let's go to this next slide. So what I want to impart on you, if you don't remember anything else, just remember this. I hope I impress on you to make a plan, to think about, oh, what are the things in my house and what can I do? Let's make a plan for it. There's a lot of great options. Some of them have existed for a long time, but there's a lot of new great ones that I'm trying to spread knowledge about. And there's also some great incentives as well. Because otherwise, when do we replace equipment? Well, it's usually when it breaks, right? Our furnace breaks, our hot water heater breaks, and it's an emergency. We use those things every day. And so you don't really have the opportunity to think about something else. You don't have the time to do something else. You just got to get something in there that works, and that's going to be the same thing that you had before. And then you're stuck again, right? For another 10, 20 years. Okay, let's go to the next thing. So what are these things? We're just going to talk about these 4 things: dryer, stove, hot water, furnace. There's lots of other cool things that we could talk about, but we're just going to focus on these things right here. We'll leave those other things for another time. Okay, next slide. We're also going to talk a lot about heat pumps, and this is the audience participation part. I'm going to need your help. I'm going to say the word heat pump a lot, or I'm going to make you guys say the word heat pump a lot. So when I point to you, can you say the word heat pump?
Heat pump.
Okay, good. Let's try that again. Let's try that again.
Heat pump.
Oh, that's much better. So a heat pump is a really cool thing. It moves heat from one place to another. You have one already. It's called a fridge, right? A fridge is a heat pump. An air conditioner is a heat pump. It's moving heat from one place to another. But when somebody says the word heat pump, what they're typically meaning when they say that is they're talking about a device that takes heat from the outside or from the ground and brings it into your home to heat your home. I wish they came up with a better word, but they keep using heat pumps, so that's what it's called. And why they're cool is that they're really efficient. They're like 2 to 4 times more efficient than any other way of heating. So it's a really great technology that's seeped into a lot of different applications. Okay, let's see what else we got. A little more background. We've got incentives. We're going to be talking about incentives. This blue text is going to be appearing on the different slides of showing you the different incentives that are available. This gray text. So when I first did this presentation, I was so excited because there's all these federal incentives from the Inflation Reduction Act. Those have since been removed by the Beautiful Bill Act or whatever it was called. But we still have a lot of great incentives from our local utility, Burlington Electric Department. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, you guys ready to talk about appliances in your house? All right, here we go. So the first one is the dryer. If you already have an electric dryer, you're done. Check that one off the list. If you have a gas dryer, well, electric dryer, you could swap in pretty easily. You will need an electrician to install a 240 volt outlet. That's the extra legwork you'll need to do. But otherwise, they're basic. They're the same thing. Okay, what else do we have here?
Why is an electric dryer better than a gas dryer?
Because you're not burning fossil fuels. If you're looking to not burn fossil fuels, electric dryer will help you do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Obviously, clothesline. That's a really simple and cheap way of not burning fossil fuels and drying your clothes. And this is the way I dry most of my clothes. And it's great. You could do it outside. You could do it inside. You can get these racks and really load it up, or you could just use all your chairs if you want. You know, in the winter, my house is really dry, and I think a lot of people's are. So it's a great way of humidifying your house a little bit, but it needs some space, right? It's not a solution for everyone because it does take up some space. All right, let's try the next one. So this is the new thing. Ready, guys?
Heat pump.
Heat pump dryer. Thank you. I appreciate that. So this is the new thing, right? These are coming on the market. And what this is, it's basically a dehumidifier, but instead of drying out your basement, it dries out your clothes. And it's really cool, right? You can get ones that just have a a regular plug that you could plug in your outlet. So you don't need your electrician or anything like that. You don't need a vent. It's not venting to the outside, so you don't have to drill a hole in your house to do that. A lot of them come as a washer dryer combo, so it can be a really compact size. So really like kind of a nice option for like a rental or a second apartment that didn't have the space before. It does have condensate, just like a dehumidifier. So you'll need to drain it, or it's got the little thing that you'll need to empty out after you do a little load of laundry. It does take a little bit longer, but only about twice as long. They are more expensive, but BED has some great rebates for them right now. Okay, what else we got? Okay, next thing, stove. Again, if you have an electric stove, you're already done. Check. If you have a gas stove, again, electric, gas, you could swap them out. They've got price ranges for both of them, all in the same thing. But you do need an electrician to install that 240 volt outlet. Nice perk is you don't have to worry about carbon monoxide poisoning. Okay, what else do we have? If you're a cooking snob, you know who you are. If there's any cooking snobs here and go like, I can't do electric cooking. Is that you? That's it. Induction is what you want. Induction is what you want. This is, if this is like cooking on a wood fire pit outside, and this is cooking on an electric stove, and this is cooking on gas stove, this is induction. It's just, I got one of these 2 years ago for the purpose of getting rid of the gas. And it's just been like, I wasn't anticipating it, but it was the funnest appliance that I've ever owned. It's just cooks a lot faster, cooks a lot more even, and it doesn't get hot. The pot gets hot. So if I spill something, move the pot out of the way, clean it with a rag. You don't have to worry about burning anything. It's great. They are pricey though. And you do need that 240 volt outlet. BD does have a rebate for them. Okay, what's next? Oh, so if you don't want to spend all that money, or if you're a renter and you're not pulling out the landlord's stove, you could get an induction hot plate, right? You can get these on Amazon, or if you like to shop local, you can go to Homeport, they sell them. Pretty cheap option, you just plug them in, and you've got a little induction burner right there. And so you could do most of your cooking on there, and if you need a second burner, well, you can then use your old existing stove. Okay, what else we got? Oh my God, there are so many ways of cooking things, right? There's probably too many gadgets that you can buy, but there's a lot of different, just to get you thinking, you know, you go microwave, super efficient, you do electric kettles to boil water. Anyway, there's so many options that you can play around with. All right.
If you want to make that slide even longer and wordier, you could add Instant Pots on there.
Oh, Instant Pots, it's not there.
Got one last week, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, you're throwing out all the stove already. It's just Instant Pot, everything, Instant Pot.
Get rid of the crock pot. I got rid of the crock pot, and I will be using it instead of my stove for making soup for sure. Soup, beans, anything like that.
It's such a long list. Yes, there's all these things, newfangled things. All right, what else do we have? Okay, now we're moving down into the basement. We're going to talk about hot water heaters. Nice thing about electric hot water heaters is that you don't burn things, right? We're talking about not burning things, so you don't have to exhaust the gas somehow, like with a flue or with a power vent. So that's nice. Electric hot water heaters come in 3 flavors. One is the standard resistive type. So this has been around a really long time, right? They're super cheap, easy to install. Everybody knows about them, but they're expensive to operate. They're using a lot of electricity to get the job done. On the other end of the spectrum, there is the heat pump. Oh, nice. The heat pump hot water heaters, and they're a little bit more pricey, but there's some really nice rebates for them. And they're a lot more efficient, so they use a lot less electricity and operate cheaper. In the middle here is the hybrid, so it has both the resistive and the heat pump. Why would you want that? I guess if you're not confident in the black magic of the heat pump, and maybe you have that electric backup, that's why. But really, the price is the same if you look at them, so it doesn't much matter, except maybe you don't have a 240 volt circuit, so it's easier to plug in. Whatever, they're about the same. Okay, let's do the next one. And there's a lot of stuff I have on these slides. You can get these slides later, or if you're like, oh, let's talk about this, we can do a little Q&A afterwards and dive in on stuff. So this slide, I say it's really exciting. And then I have a picture of words. What's going on here? So if you're a homeowner, you have a lot more ability to decide what's in your house, right? If you're in a rental unit, that's much harder. There's this what's called a split incentive, right? Landlords, why would they invest into better equipment? Because they don't get to see the benefit. It's the renter that gets to see the benefit. So why would it's a cost to them without incurring a benefit? Other side of it, renters, why would they invest in this equipment? They don't own it. They're going to be going probably in a year or two. So how do you make investments of this equipment happen? And one nice way is to have on-bill financing or leasing from a third party. So this first one here is Vermont Gas, the gas company will come, take out your gas hot water heater, put in electric heat pump hot water heater, doesn't use gas, and they will own and maintain it. And they will lease it to you. So the lease payments show up on the gas bill that the renter pays because they're using it. The landlord doesn't have to pay a thing. If it needs repair or something, the landlord doesn't have to deal with that either because Vermont Gas owns it. They're going to come. They've got a team of technicians. The landlord doesn't have to call up some plumber in the middle of the night and figure that out. And the renter, once they're done living in that space, they don't have no further obligations. The next renter comes in and continues that lease with Vermont Gas. So that's a great program. I wish we had more of those programs out there. There's a few others, but none is like simple and as awesome as that one right there. So that's a great thing. All right, let's move on. Okay, we're going to talk about space heating last here. And like the hot water heaters, we have 3 different flavors. We have the resistive, cheap to buy, expensive to operate. We've got the heat pump. Oh, sorry, guys. Oh, thank you. We've got the heat pump, more expensive to buy, cheaper to operate, and then the hybrid systems. Okay, let's see what we've got. Okay, so the resistive. So there's baseboard electric resistive, right? And for the most part in Vermont, this is banned in energy code. There's a few cases where you can use it, but for the most part, Vermont doesn't let you do resistive baseboard because it's so expensive and there's renter protection issues. But just you as a person, you can get a little space heater pretty easy, right? They're very cheap. And I wouldn't recommend heating your whole house with them because, again, that's very expensive and you're just going to trip all your breakers and everything. But it's a great way to just heat a little room. Like if you're working from home, you don't have to heat the whole house to be comfortable. You can just put one of these in there and be happy for the day. And that's great. Okay, what else we have? Well, we've got heat pumps. All right, thank you. There's so many kinds of heat pumps out there, but this is a typical picture of what it looks on the outside, right? Why are we talking so much about heat pumps? Where did that come from? Heat pumps have been around for a long time. Again, an air conditioner is a heat pump. And even in southern states or warmer states, heat pumps, air conditioners that work both ways, provided cooling and heating, have existed for a very long time. They just weren't that efficient when it got cold, right? They kind of stopped working after freezing. So we didn't really see them up here in the north all that much until about a decade or so ago, when they got much, much better at being able to provide heat when it was super cold, being efficient at providing heat when it's super cold. And right now you can get a cold climate heat pump. That's the phrase you want to look for, by the way. Cold climate heat pump. They can work down to negative 15 degrees and still provide their rated power of heat, which is amazing. It's been really cold this winter. I don't think it got down to negative 15. I don't think we're going to see that in Burlington again, unfortunately. Well, just one more second with that one. So a lot of people ask about, well, I don't trust the black magic of the heat pump. Do I need like I need to keep my my furnace or my boiler in case it doesn't perform when it gets really, really cold? And the answer is, well, one, it goes down to -15, so you should be good. But two, if you are worried about it, it's actually really easy to integrate a backup electric resistance. Again, that's expensive to operate, but if you're only worried about 1 or 2 nights, these resistance backup things are really cheap. And there you go. You got cheap insurance on anything that happens if the black magic doesn't work, or even if it just doesn't work in general, like it breaks. You know, if your furnace breaks right now, you're just out of luck. But this is a nice way to have cheap backup insurance. Okay, now I'm ready. So what do these look like on the inside? Well, okay, so this is an awkward slide in the whole order of things, but we're just going to talk about this. One option is window units, and these are actually really new to the scene, so it might be a little hard to find these. But there's a whole bunch of different window units that are coming onto the market. If you do decide to go for one of these things, just make sure that it's called a cold climate, because some of them will look like this, and they'll just have electric resistant element in there, and that's not going to be very efficient. That's going to cost you. So you want to make sure it's a cold climate one. Okay, let's go to the next one. So if you call up a contractor and you say, I want a
Heat pump.
you're the star, gold star right there. They're probably going to say, okay, this is what they're going to talk about. They're going to say, oh, you want a mini split. And a mini split, the outside looked like that outdoor unit that we were looking at before. And on the inside, it's going to look something like this. And this is the most popular one. This is the wall mounted version. And that's because it's the cheapest version, you know. But there's so many different options. You know, there's these ceiling mounts, there's baseboard options, there's paneled options. There's so many options. It's dizzying. And you could have one outdoor unit to one indoor unit, or multiple indoor units for one outdoor unit. There's lots of different configurations you can do. And our contractors around here are very versed in using them. They are the most efficient models that you can get out there. The one downside though, and this is kind of an issue for our older housing, is they aren't well designed for small rooms. It's hard to make them work with the small rooms. They like an open floor plan because they, but you could usually figure out a way to work it, but it's just a little bit trickier. And look at all these rebates. There's tons of different rebates depending on how big you get and what the efficiency is of the units that you get. Okay, let's do this next one. Another option is what's called centrally ducted. This is what I've got in my house. Is you just take the gas furnace out, you put in this heat exchanger, which is connected to your heat pump. And you guys are so tired of it, but you're helping me, so I don't have to say so much. I really appreciate it. And there you go, you're working again. Your ducts are doing what they normally do, plus you have central air now. So oh yeah.
Is that for a forced air system, or does that work with like a hot water or steam system?
Yeah, that's coming up next. Yeah, this is for forced air. If you already have ducts and you have a furnace. And again, there's lots of great rebates, and they depend on the size of the equipment and the efficiency of the equipment. You get more efficient equipment, you're going to get a bigger rebate. Okay, next one. So this is what we were talking about, hydronics. So if you have baseboard or if you have radiant, yeah, you take your boiler, you switch it out for a heat exchanger to your I think that might be the last one, guys, so thank you. And away you go. Not going to lie, this one is going to be trickier to do. There's not a lot of contractors that know how to do this and are familiar with this work. You probably call up most contractors and they tell you that it doesn't even exist. But it does exist. They do a lot in other countries. It's just very uncommon here in the United States. So if you're going to do this, just be patient. Take the time to find the contractor that's familiar. Okay, what else do we have? Okay, so this is the end. And this slide, again, you don't have to remember any of this except for what the planning part, right? think of the plan. What do I have in my house? And these slides are going to be at the Ward 6 NPA meeting minutes, right? Yeah, so all this is here. We've got some great links. So here's the Burlington Electric Department. They've got a great page for all their rebates. Really simple, really lays out all the information that you might want for your rebates. Oh, this is a holdover. It used to be all the IRA stuff. And then also great links if you want to learn more about the different technologies. One last slide, actually. I've just added this. So if you're on board with this idea and you want to get rid of your fossil fuel equipment, I just started this pledge for folks who are committed to planning to not buy fossil fuel equipment anymore. So if you're interested, please go to this website and sign up. Love to kind of spread this idea around because I know there's a lot of committed people, but there's a lot of habits that we all need to break, and so it can be hard. So trying to normalize all this together is better than separate. Okay, that's it. And if you got some questions, thank you for having me here.
So, so you're trying to reduce the use of fossil fuels in the home, and I can see how you're doing that. But from my understanding, the vast majority of people in the country, in the U.S., Canada, Mexico, even, they get their electricity from some sort of a municipal or a private company that generates electricity, and the vast majority of those use fossil fuels. So how is this? Is it more efficient because at the source where it's being used, it's not being used, and so it's better for the planet at that point to reduce fossil fuels, or is there a difference between making changes there or at your local power plant that's using natural gas or oil or coal to generate electricity?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and you're certainly right about that efficiency part of it. But I think the more important part is, remember in the beginning, we're talking about if you buy a furnace that burns fossil fuels, all you can do is burn fossil fuels and you have no more options. If you're using a heating system that uses electricity is cool because it can do so many things, right? We can heat our home, we can turn on lights, our computers, we can drive a car with it. There's just so many things you could do with it. It's kind of ambidextrous, right? And also on the other side, there's so many ways to generate electricity. And a lot of our grid does use fossil fuels to generate that electricity. But there's actually a lot of our grid that doesn't use fossil fuels to generate that electricity. And more that is the case where we're supplanting fossil fuel generation with non-fossil fuel generation. And in particular for our state and our region, we have specific goals. It's kind of nerdy, but it's called the RGGI, which is a carbon cap and trade program that reduces the carbon intensity of our grid over time. And I know Vermont has other programs as well. So when you're looking at this, again, when you're looking at buying something, if you buy something that uses fossil fuels, you're stuck. You just have no option. Versus if you buy something that uses electricity, part of that electricity is going to come from fossil fuels, and part of it's not. And then you have that ability over time for it to get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and cleaner as time goes on, which is that's the key right there.
So where would you find the information if I wanted to convert my house to all these things? How many solar panels? Can somebody tell me how many solar panels I would need to heat or cool my house, to run the hot water, to run the stove and the dryer? Who knows that sort of thing?
I could definitely do that math, but a solar installer would be the person that could do that math for you and figure out how many, if you wanted local solar to offset all your energy needs, they could figure that out for you. Yeah.
Efficiency Vermont can also tell you.
You would want to put it all on solar, right? I mean, like heating your house and like using just solar, that's gonna be a lot of panels if that's all you're using.
Not a huge number, actually.
No?
The number of kilowatt hours a house uses versus what solar panels can produce they're not radically different numbers. I will share two experiences, if I may.
Sure.
First is my gold star experience.
Nice.
My house up on Howard Street, Burlington Electric believes it was the first historic structure to get to zero fossil fuel use.
Nice.
Right before the pandemic, we took the last step, got rid of the furnace. It was ducted, so 2 air handlers and 2 exterior heat pumps. Could have done 1, but the advice was don't get 1 big one, get 2 medium-sized ones in case one goes down. You still have something going, because the blower in your furnace blows. Like every HVAC van has 2 blowers that they can just come and pop in. But if your heat pump goes down, maybe a few days. And the heat pump water heater is awesome because it dehumidifies your basement as well as doing its thing. I will say the weakest part of that project was replacing the gas insert in the fireplace with an electric fireplace. That's the one part my family's mad about. Electric fireplaces, if you'll excuse the language, electric fireplaces suck.
Yeah.
The technology just isn't there yet to provide something that looks nice and provides heat. And we're on like our 5th try now, and we finally got to the point where it's producing enough heat so the dogs sleep in front of it again.
Yeah.
But that's in Burlington, where the power never goes out. My family home in southern Vermont is in the middle of nowhere at the end of a long dirt road, and the power can be out there, literally for 4 days in a row. And so that's the problem with heat pumps. If the power goes out, you're done if you don't have backup. And so down there, even, we put in batteries and there's solar panels on the roof and all this stuff. And we left the gas furnace in place, and we have a generator.
Yeah.
Just because,
Yeah.
with without electricity, that stuff doesn't work.
Yeah. And we're very fortunate here. PD does a great job at making sure that we have very few disruptions. And it is interesting, like, even if you have a gas furnace or oil furnace, if your power goes out, you don't have a furnace, right? Because they all use electricity. But it is a much lighter load, so it's easier to use a generator to power a furnace than it is to power a heat pump for those people that are out in the sticks, for sure.
I have a tankless like hot heat for a water heater. It does not matter. Like can I use like the heat pump type? Is there like a tankless heat pump like water heater?
Oh, tankless.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because it takes a while for the water to heat up, but then once it's endless hot water. Like you could I have a lot of washing a lot of dishes.
There are many strangely strong opinions about tank versus tankless out there. The non-fossil fuel burning equivalent is an electric tankless hot water heater. Those use a lot of electricity. So you're definitely talking service upgrade. But I have a heat pump hot water heater that's a tank, and I've never run out of hot water. Of course, we're just a family of 2. But how much hot water you have depends on 3 things. That is the recharge speed, the size of the tank, and the temperature of the tank. So you can always just get a bigger tank.
Yeah.
And then you'll effectively have all the hot water you want if that's what you're looking for.
Are there other questions or comments or reflections on this?
That was really neat, Jacob. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you getting the word out around the area? Just the wards, are you going to all?
I'm doing these NPA meetings. Yes. That is the biggest thing. I was talking to Dale a little bit about, we don't have a Burlington Energy Committee, which is kind of interesting. I've definitely connected with the local 350 chapter, a little bit with them. But yeah, if I'd love to have your support in spreading the word about all this stuff, because I think it's great. And I think a lot of people do in the back of their heads, they know about this, but maybe aren't yet comfortable. So it's great to talk about it more so we all kind of normalize it. Yeah.
I'm just curious because Burlington is predominantly renters. How do we tell landlords that they should do these things and why and what's in it for them?
That's exactly it, right? They don't have particularly an incentive to do it because it's a cost for them that they don't, it's the same thing, right? A cost for them that they don't see the benefits because they're not paying the utility bills. I mean, you could argue that, oh, because the utility bills are lower, it's more desirable for renters, but it's a little opaque. The market's already hot. Nobody's going to really worry about that. So it is a difficult thing. And that's why that unbilled financing thing, I think, is a really important tool that I wish we would push a little bit more. And as an option, I think if we got enough support to be able to address that split incentive, because if it doesn't cost the landlord, but it improves the quality of their building, then that's a great solution. So that's one thing that I would love to see. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Been cold this winter.
Uh-oh. Well, maybe I'll make one more plug. If you have leaky windows, then there's an organization I work with, window dressers. A bunch of volunteers put on a build the window inserts together. So that's a great way to seal up leaky windows. Help with that.
And does that work if you're a renter or only if it's your home? Like only if you own the home.
Right, there's still that split incentive, but fortunately the cost of the inserts are really low or free if people identify that they need it for free. So yeah, we've had renters, we've had landlords do it.
Awesome.
And the trick is just having somebody who's committed enough to care for them, take them down in the summertime.
Got it.
Yeah. All right, thanks all.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
So I handed out to everybody who's in the room 3 index cards and a pencil. And not everybody in the room is Ward 6, but everybody in the room is warmly invited to express their opinions. So the basic idea here is we've been asked to identify kind of what issues we think the NPA should be addressing. This is kind of like a all wards question that Barbara put out to us in certain ways. But we also want to know, and we thought like, okay, well, we can ask that question, but we've asked that question before and haven't really gotten answers. So we decided to ask some different questions that we thought we could use to consider this. I will kind of also prompt the discussion or the reflection by saying we have in the past had some sort of like focus areas. There was a while that we were focused on housing and homelessness. There was a while that we were focused on the addiction crisis and homelessness. There was a while that we were focused on stormwater, which is kind of a different issue. I thought that Jacob coming in here and talking about this was also kind of an interesting prompt of something that we could focus on in a different way in future meetings. So those are kind of some like things that we focused on in the past for one or a series of meetings. But also we have these questions that might be better. And this is why I gave out 3 postcards or index cards for 3 questions. What's the best thing that the city has done recently? What should the city do more of? And what's a concern that should be addressed? And I just encourage anybody who wants to in the room, anybody who's on Zoom can send an email to me. That's probably the easiest, or to Barbara, or if you want, stick it in the chat and we can capture it that way. Can we? Is there a chat function on the Zoom?
There's not.
Okay, so skip that one. Send an email to me. DALE.AZARIA@gmail.com. And I'll just repeat the questions again. And I see some people are already writing, which I love because it means I'll have things to collect up. What's the best thing that the city has done recently? What should the city do more of? And what's a concern that should be addressed? And we have Becca and Buddy's request to send the prompts in an email. We'll do that. We'll probably also put it out with our Ward 6 newsletter and see if we get any additional responses that way. And I also would invite anybody who wants to say anything out loud in response to this to do that too. But sometimes people like writing better.
I'll say something out loud.
Awesome, Robin, go ahead.
Reasons that I've started to come is something that I just see around me on my street. So, that's very self-focused. I live on St. Paul Street and it's dominantly owned by landlords with lots of renters and people who change regularly. And I just wonder how our city ordinances are communicated. And then
To landlords
to
or to
landlords,
renters or
to people
or
who
to
rent,
everybody?
to everybody. And then that would be number one, like, does everybody know what the ordinances are in order to follow them? Because if you don't know to put your recycling bin and trash behind your house after the day, you don't do it. And especially if it's the habit to leave the trash bins and the recycling bins on the road side or in the road. So number one, how are they communicated? And then number two, how are they enforced? Yeah. And I don't think it's an issue as you go up the hill, but at the bottom of the hill, it seems to be a problem. Trash, recycling, burning things, fires in the backyard and cats, there's a new ordinance about cats. And sometimes I see these new ordinances get into place and people put a lot of time into creating them. I've noticed that too, but then I just don't know if people know they exist.
That's a great question. And I know we have had Bill Ward here, who is city code enforcement. I don't know exactly what his title is. But I don't think we've asked him that. We've asked him more specific questions. How is this particular ordinance working? We've asked some specific questions like that, but sometimes asking the broader question can, you get a different answer, you get a different take on it.
And I thought, before the step of it being a punitive action, maybe people don't even know. And then how can we do better? I mean, how could I maybe even help as a neighbor to get the word out?
Yeah.
This is what we do here.
Yeah.
You have to pay close attention, I guess, to like city council meeting, like to hear about new ordinances and like the cat on a leash ordinance. Like I felt that was it just happened. Like it wasn't communicated when they were like coming up with it, and I thought they changed it and they were going to cancel it. But then I heard it's now on the books, like that cats have to be leashed if they're outside.
I'm going to say, when Joan Shannon stopped coming to our meetings to tell us about it, I lost track of it.
But now it's on the book. It's like, I guess it got snuck back in there somehow.
I don't know why I mentioned the cat one, because really,
I actually have it on my side.
it's more the trash rolling down the street that, just feels, Chad, I think we could do better. I think it makes people feel better to live in a picked up environment. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that one thing I really have liked, I guess I'd like to say, oh, please. Just to balance my concern, I really liked all of the thinking that's going into making our community feel like it's a healthy one for everybody. All the work that's going into that, all the thinking. I know we don't have all the answers, but I just see so many people working so hard to make it a livable place for everybody. And I really appreciate that.
I think the best thing that Burlington has done is built a new high school. And the one thing that I'd really like Burlington to focus on is getting cell phones out of schools for students. That's what I'd really like to see.
Done. State legislation starting in September.
Oh, it is really?
Bell to bell, no cell phones.
Oh,
And Burlington High School actually implemented it a semester early. They've started it already. So we're on it.
glad to hear.
All of Charlie's dreams have come true.
You're gonna have to dream bigger, Charlie.
Okay.
Oh, that was a big dream, and remarkably, it has happened.
So is the law already passed, or is it
No,
like
the law-
passed one
No,
house but
no,
still
no,
needs
the
to
law,
the
the
other?
law's passed. The law's done, and it is statewide bell to bell starting next September. And the data is overwhelmingly in support. Like you start looking at the data on student academic performance and student social development and teacher satisfaction, and the only grumpy people are a few parents, and they get over it.
They will. Awesome. Any other thoughts or comments? I do see some people scratch some things down on cards. I will collect them up and we will use them to think about what comes next. In that case, 2 minutes early, the meeting is adjourned. Woo. Thank you all.
It's the go containers. If you want to take some food home.